Get ready to listen to the greatest heavy metal podcast of all time. Heavy Metal War Stories with your host, Stevie Peavy.
Yeah, that's right. It's everybody's favorite guy, Stevie Peavy, here once again for another edition of Heavy Metal War Stories. Who we're interviewing today? Today we're interviewing Dizzy Draztik. Dizzy's been a long time player on the rock scene. He came out in the mid-90s out of Iowa, Des Moines, where tons of huge bands, or bands who went on to be huge, came out of. Stone Sour, Slipknot, the Murderdolls. So he was right there at ground zero with all of them. He's got a ton of good stories to talk about. Now everybody knows in Heavy Metal War Stories, we break it up into two segments. The first part, we talk about legendary rocker, one who influenced both of us, one who made metal what it is today. Second half, we talk about the guest in question's rock upbringing and some crazy, crazy fucking shit they got into when they were in the thick of it all. So we decided the first part of the podcast, and timely time to do it, metal legend Ronnie James Dio and what he meant to both of us. So take it away, Dizzy. How'd you become a fan of Ronnie James Dio?
You know, 10 years old, and my dad had passed by then, so my mom and my grandparents actually got me Shout at the Devil and Twisted Sister, Stay Hungry, and the last in line, Here We Go with the Dio.
Right.
That was my big Christmas in 83, 84. You know, and any parent who's buying their children those albums, and there's devil horns and pentagrams, like, pretty much at that point, any vision of lawyer or doctor went right out my mom's ears. Like, it was gone, you know. Like, I remember seeing Nikki Sixx on the cover of a circus at, like, 11 years old and looking at my mom and going, that's what I want to do.
And she was like, yeah, okay, I can see that. And
she was right there. Like, she supported me until the day she died, you know, and that was super awesome.
Well, let's think about this. You had this unholy trinity of Dio, Twisted Sister, and Motley's, some of their most classic records all at once. Did Dio stand out in front of the other two, or what?
I think the imagery on the front of the album, you know, the huge pyramid-y devil-looking thing, you know, I think that made a point. The Motley record, you know, it was black, and you had to turn it to see the pentagram. The Twisted Sister thing was some dude in drag eating a cow bone, which was evil enough when you're 10 years old, but there was something about the Dio record that was just like, whoa, what's that all about? And, you know, who would have known at 10 years old, 2-3 years later, I would have had a shitty little fanzine. And, you know, in 1986, 1987, there weren't a lot of people that gave a shit about Dio. Why not make a fanzine?
And it was a Dio fanzine or a metal fanzine?
It was a metal fanzine, just, you know, blanket statement metal. And the folks in the Dio camp were the first people that gave me a shot. And, you know, I got a shot. I got a rough cut interview with Amir, who ended up in Orgy. Anyway.
Right, Amir to rock.
Yeah, I am here to rock. And then I landed the Dio interview. And, you know, if I'm Ronnie James Dio and I was in fucking Black Sabbath, the last thing I want to do is talk to some fat kid with Coke bottle glasses and a mullet in Des Moines, Iowa. And he was gracious, dude. I must have talked to him for an hour and a half. I had one of those little flip cassette recorder things.
Yep.
And I had to flip the little cassette how long-winded he was.
That's kind of cool.
Remember.
That's better than my story of trying to be a zine reporter when I was a little kid. And I interviewed Mike Muir for about an hour and a half, and then it was at the end that I realized I'd hit play instead of record on my recorder.
Oh, denied, dude.
Yeah, totally.
How many times did Mike Muir say fuck in the course of your interview?
I don't know. Mike Muir was a pretty mellow guy. In fact, I was actually doing artwork for Suicidal at the time, so it's sort of like I think the guys were like, dude, that dude who's doing our album cover is you know, really wants to interview you. So let's knock this out so we can get this album cover done.
Dude, I remember being in, like, I want to say it was 6th grade, maybe 7th, and somebody brought into social studies class the vinyl of Join the Army. Now, keep in mind at the time, if you had hairspray and eyeliner and the whole deal, like if you were a glam band or a metal band, I was like, you're awesome, you know? And then this kid, Jamie Milstead, I remember this like it was yesterday, brings this record in. And all I could think of was, what are the extras from Colors doing, putting an album out?
Well, cool. Well, not to give Dio the short shrift, but let's talk about him. It's like the weirdest thing about Dio to me, and I'm not going to go into the Elf stuff unless you're a huge fan, because...
Yeah, no. We can, for what it is, it's awesome, but it's not my thing.
Right, so Rainbow comes out, and you're like, okay, cool, Richie Blackmore's got this kind of, this very Vikings and Warriors and stuff, like 70s band, and you go, okay, that's Richie's thing. And then all of a sudden, Dio, like I mentioned this with Sleek, because we were talking about Ozzy and Sabbath and Randy, and I said, it's really interesting that Sabbath were a huge legendary band. Dio comes in, and in 2 seconds, Sabbath could have been Dio's like backing band. I mean, that stuff sounds exactly like Dio.
Here comes this tiny little dude out of nowhere, Connecticut or wherever he was, from New England, and reshaped, quite possibly, the forefathers of modern heavy music. Like, reinvented the damn band.
He walks in and he goes, "Geezer, that's nice that you wrote the lyrics for 8 albums of a huge legendary band. I'll be taking over now."
Right. Like, you go ahead and get a beer. I'm going to rewrite your legacy. That's
so
awesome.
You got a couple Rainbow records, you got a couple Sabbath records, and you got a string of Dio records, and they have different band names on the title, but they're really more all akin to like the Dio sound than any Rainbow didn't sound like Rainbow once Dio left, which was obviously by Blackmore's design, and Sabbath didn't sound like what they sounded like when he was there. So I would almost consider that a single work more attributable to Dio than all those other bands. Which is your favorite? What's the best of all those eras?
Going to the point you made, I would say the dude definitely. The dude could walk into a Denny's and it would be called Dio's. You know what I mean? Like, such a little man with such a huge presence, and he just reinvented everything he did, including his own music. Getting back to your question, all I've got to say and what defines it or what's my favorite, you can't, if you're me anyway, you can't hear him say, "Sing me a song, you're a singer," and hear that voice. There's something in that rumbling under those 2 little lines that you just know. It's like when you watch a thunderstorm coming in over the horizon, the shit's about ready to hit the fan.
Right.
And it does. And it's like the coolest tornado that ever destroyed your house. And
so you're saying the Heaven and Hell album is about as good as it gets.
It's about as beautifully evil as outside of Nick Cave that you can possibly get. Like, it's dark, but there's light. It's angry, but it's happy. It's sad, but it's elation. The dude was just a complete dichotomy. You think one thing, he throws you a curveball. It's a completely different other deal. And he, as far as I can see, and maybe I'm wrong, and somebody can step to the plate and tell me I am, but he did that with everything he did. And that goes through all his solo records. Like Angry Machines is a way different record than Last in Line. And that was different from Dream Evil. But the one constant was this tiny little man with the biggest voice and a big heart. Like, going back to interviewing him, I was asking this dude questions that no 12, 13-year-old probably should do, and I'm not trying to stroke my own cock here, but I've always been a pretty literary individual. I was reading by the time I was 2. I would like to think, even though I say fuck a lot, that I have a pretty good vocabulary. And I think he sat back and went, wow, there's this kid that has this passion for this music, and years down the road, this is like 86, 87, and I think it was the Lock Up the Wolves tour. It was in 90.
What year would that be? Okay.
90, 91, there was a Foundations Forum thing in L.A. that I had flown out to. Now, keep in mind, in 90, 91, I'm like 16 years old, and I'm traveling around like I'm world journalist. And, thank God for expense accounts that I could have charged back to my parents. But it worked, and I ran into him. And, I was reflecting the story of, I did this interview. And he literally verbatim quoted back to me questions I had asked him 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, that's the thing about Dio. I mean, everybody says, like, one guy who would just stand out in the rain until every fan had an autograph, until everybody got a picture or whatever they wanted, that kind of a thing. Yeah. And, I mean, like, to tell you the truth, I never, ever, ever, ever saw Dio live in my entire life until Heaven and Hell about a year ago right now, which I'm glad to have done because, that was that. But, granted, I have those Rainbow records, I have the Sabbath records, I have first two Dio records, but I have to admit, just in a thing of full disclosure, like after those first two Dio records, I sort of felt like Dio's. It's like it didn't carry on. Like I'm not saying that I lost interest because he didn't look as pretty as Motley Crue or something like that. But
whatever. You like boys in blue eyeshadow. Quit fucking around.
But I don't know. It's like something happened, at least for me. Like I think like all that classic stuff up to his first two records. I was really into, and I just kind of didn't follow his career that much up until then. But I was really happy to have seen Heaven and Hell, right at the end. So I would have checked it out. And definitely, just like I mean, he is when people make fun of him being old. It's probably mean, but there's something there when you're older than the Rolling Stones, when you're older than the people who pretty much started rock and roll, you're pretty damn fucking old. And to be like, I mean, think of all the guys in their 50s or late 40s that are sucking now, and he was like 70 and kicking ass.
Look at guys that are 22 fucking years old and can't carry a tune without some douchebag hitting auto-tune. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, the dude was 3 years older than God and had a voice that could split the earth. You watch some of those last Heaven and Hell, like go to YouTube, like some of the last shows ever. The dude's riddled with cancer. He's in pain, and he sounds exactly like he did 20 years ago. I don't know. I don't know where you get that from. Maybe it was some kind of inner strength, whatever. But it was just amazing to see a man of his age just belled it out. He was kind of the metal Sinatra,
Yeah, and it kind of was always effortless. It wasn't that guy, Rob Halford. I mean, I would say, Rob's about as good as it gets, but Rob always looked like he was working his ass off to do what he does.
And Dio just kind of walked around like, hey, cool, I'm in front of 20,000 people and I'm just doing what I do. Sing me a song, like it was just nothing, dude. It was effortless. That's talent when you don't have to put effort into it. He was born to sing, and he sang us a great song. And
yeah, so. And then the funniest thing, I wouldn't say it's funny. In fact, it's not funny at all. But I was at the Revolver Golden God Awards, and Dio came out and gave a little intro, and it really was interesting because then he died a month later, and the most interesting thing was he just kind of came out and gave the intro. And I'm not saying he did cartwheels, but then again, Dio never did that, and it was just the fact that he came out and gave the intro almost gave almost looked like, oh, wow, cool. I mean, we heard some bad things, but he's obviously kicking ass if he's taking time to, do an intro and probably avoid Ozzy Osbourne and all that kind of stuff. And then, it was only like 3 weeks or a month later that he was gone.
I don't even know if it was 3 weeks or a month. It was quick because I remember watching, I heard it, when it happened. Like, obviously, I got phone calls and stuff like, dude, Dio's on the carpet next to me. Like, whoa, cool. And then I saw it. And they showed it, like, on VH Dumb or whatever it was. And, like, you see this dude 3 weeks before he dies with all this life in it. It's almost like he had that one thing to say, like, I'm still here, and I'm always going to be here, even if not in the physical. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, and I want to know what idiot at Revolver was like, okay, guess what? It's a great get. We got Dio to come and talk, and now we're going to give our Lifetime Achievement Award to, I don't even know who they gave it to. Did they give it to Rob Halford? But you got Dio, who's riddled with cancer, to attend, and you're like, no, we'll give him his Lifetime Achievement Award 5-10 years down the road. What the fuck was that?
Yeah, you're going to send me into a tangent of fucking hate here. But okay, here's the deal, dude. Revolver in 2010, to me, is kind of what would have happened if Hit Parader kept going and they had incestuous sex with the Weekly World News.
I don't even know what to make of that, but
I don't either, but I said it. I'm probably going to get sued now, but, fuck, whatever. I don't know, the 20 hottest girls in metal, or, This month's centerfold is bearded dudes that play in Drop Z and sing songs about Denny's menus. Like, I don't know, their idea of metal skewed. I think the whole idea of current metal skewed, with the exception of like probably 3 or 4 bands. But yeah, whoever did that and didn't give Dio the Lifetime Achievement Award while he was checking out is a fucking asshole, and they should be smacked in the face with a frozen fish. Fuck Revolver.
Okay, so
anyway,
I've only got 2 more things to really bring up about Dio.
You're like, I'm getting the hell out of this interview, dude.
First off, like when I bring up these guys, I'm going to give the total hand jobs to the people who deserve it, and I'm not shy about saying.
Okay, while you're hand jobbing somebody, I'm cracking into the rest of this bottle of wine. So
we discussed Randy Rhoads earlier, and Randy Rhoads, I mentioned was a perfect example, similar to Kurt Cobain or Jimi Hendrix, where you kind of check out before you ever made your big missteps, and then you really can get legendary status. But I'm not shy to have a big feature of any performer to go like where'd they go wrong. And you're a huge Dio fan, and I'm gonna ask you, me personally, after The Last in Line, I don't think there's anything essential, and I know you don't agree. I'm sure there's a lot for you to like after that, but let me know.
Actually, you know what? I'm probably more in agreement with your statement than you would think I am. You've got the first 3 Dio records that are untouchable, and then you slide into Outcome the Wolves, or not Outcome the Wolves. Why am I thinking Rancid? Christ. You get into Dream Evil and all that stuff, dude, and it kind of. I personally, as a fan, I got a little bit lost. Like, okay.
Cool.
It's, it's cool for what it is. But it didn't resonate for me. And then, you got into the 90s thing and the grunge or whatever you want to call it. And, whatever put the big stiff one up hair metal's ass. And not that Dio was ever hair metal, but I think everybody from that scene got lumped into it. If you were Slayer or if you were Shotgun Messiah, all of a sudden your name was Mud.
Yeah, I agree. But I think there's people who did some great stuff. Like, not everybody agrees with me, but Wasp's Kill Fuck Die record. I mean, that was released when you couldn't have been, it couldn't have been less cool to be metal, but I thought it was great.
Oh, yeah, dude. If you were Blackie Lawless when you put Kill Fuck Die out, you might as well have been bagging groceries at Ralph's. You know?
But it was like, people could go, well, Dio's career went downhill because he wasn't a pretty boy when you needed to be one, and then he wasn't grunge when you needed to be grunge. But I still think if you just looked at it dispassionately from a reviewer standpoint, he didn't have the fire of the earlier years. And would you say that Vivian Campbell was the X factor? Like Craig Goldie couldn't kind of keep it going, or what?
I don't know. I think there's some good Craig Goldie era material. I mean, to say that Craig isn't a proficient player is just straight bullshit. The guy can play a guitar,
Right.
I just think I don't want to say that Ronnie blew his load with those records, and then it was kind of a hard rope to climb to get back out of that. I just don't think all the magic was there. And I hate to use magic and Dio in the same word because it's kind of cliche and convoluted, but there wasn't something there. But on the back end of it, I remember seeing him play a club in Des Moines called The Runway in 96, 97, maybe 95, and there were literally 12 people in the place.
Wow.
And he played it like he was playing Giant Stadium.
Well, that just seems totally in line with who he was,
Oh, he destroyed it. And, he came out and he did the same Dio thing. Thank you very much for giving us an appropriate response. This next song is called The Last in Line. Play the song, 12 people go clap, 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 woohoo! He's all, thank you very much to that one person in the back corner that understands that I am the man on the silver mountain. He just rolled with it, dude. And I had more respect then, and that's kind of when my Dio fire kind of kicked into gear again. That's cool. This guy gets it. Because a lot of those bands at the time, man, were like, oh, great, cool. There's 2 people here in Armpit, Arkansas, and I fucking hate my life. Here's a song called, whatever. And he never let that affect him. And he was always good. The 12 people that went to that show, he hung out with those 12 people for the half hour it took to talk to those 12 people, including myself, and he was always on it. The consummate professional would be the 2 words I would associate with that man. And didn't matter if he was the dude from Black Sabbath or he was a guy that actually played after some cover band in Des Moines, He was the dude.
So final thing with Dio, and I don't know if it's the best way to see him off, but come on, everybody always talks about Dio versus Ozzy. You know, I mean, not that, you know, Sabbath was Dio's only band or anything, but that's something that always comes up. So I wanted to kind of get your take on that.
When it comes down to me and just me, and I know people are going to fucking hate me for this, to me, Black Sabbath is the Dio years. I know the Ozzy years are what everybody associates, and there was great material there. But I think Ronnie took that material and not only sang it better than Ozzy, he presented better material to that band than they did with Ozzy. That's how I think about it. If people don't like it, hey, cool, we all have our own opinions. But
yeah, I don't know if I can agree with that. I have that Live Evil, and I can't deal with the way. I mean, Dio's a great singer, but I can't deal with the way. You know, Ozzy has a super unique voice, and I don't think he does Ozzy songs correctly at all. But he certainly kicked ass on the Dio songs, especially Voodoo. We never talked about Voodoo. Like you said, Heaven and Hell, that's the most evil thing. I would say Voodoo.
Pretty evil, dude.
Voodoo doesn't get much more evil than Voodoo.
There's a little bit of evil going on there.
Anybody who's listening to this, just type Black Sabbath Voodoo in YouTube and listen along while you're listening to this podcast if you don't know that song, because that fucking rocks.
Yeah, that's good. And I'm ashamed that I didn't bring that up, and I have failed as a human being.
Yeah, well...
I do know this, dude. I know the world's a better place for having that tiny little voice of metal walk around here for as long as he did, and I'm glad I got to be alive during the time that he could sing songs that made my life that much better for hearing them, you know? Dude, he had a single out before Nikki Sixx was born. Do the math, metal kids. Your sandwich-sharing hero was a diaper stain when Dio was cutting 45s. Do the math.
Not only that, but they were kind of like both kind of at their kind of evil high point at the same time as well.
Yeah. Oh, man, that would have been weird. Dio's Last in Line tour and Molly opening the Shot of the Devil.
Well, what I want to talk about is, you know, I gave you almost no intro at all. I said, okay, there's this guy Dizzy, and
who's this fucking guy?
He was a fat kid with a zine, and everybody listening is going to be like, wow, okay, we're listening to the opinions of a fat kid with a zine. But to tell you the truth, Dizzy has a pretty interesting rock history. Dizzy grew up in Iowa, which seems like a boring place, and it may or may not have been. I've never been. Actually, I have been. I've played shows in Iowa, but I've rarely been. But he was around tons of guys who became huge rock and roll players in Slipknot and Murderdolls, and you know he was also in band The Rejects with some of those guys, and that was doing pretty well for quite some time. So why don't we get into it?
Kind of funny to see my little punk rock band turn into the Murderdolls, which didn't, you know, and God, no offense, guys, if you happen to hear this, because I love you all, but you know, the first go around didn't work that well.
The first Murderdolls record.
The first Murderdolls record didn't really do too well in America. It did great overseas, and
they were kind of like Kerrang. It was like a Kerrang band, like sort of like Human Waste Project or something, where they're on the cover of Kerrang, but they'll probably play to 10 people at the Whiskey if they play.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. Like, I think after I left the band and once the record came out, I think they actually only played like 16 dates in America total.
Right.
But they did extremely well in Europe and Japan, and you know, there's a part of me, to be extremely honest with you, dude, that you know, I was a little bummed out that like Summer Sonic in Japan right after I left the band, you know, and they got to play with
let's back up before you get into that. You were in a band with those guys called The Rejects, right?
Right.
And so how did that start?
That started as a joke. That was Joey
as
Jordison.
All good bands do.
Right. Every good band starts as a Beavis moment, you know? And it literally started, me and Joey Jordison were friends, and I remember he worked at a place called Musicland, which was an offshoot of Sam Goody.
Yeah, we had him in L.A., I think.
Yeah. For people who remember record stores. And, you know, we got in there, and we got to talking stuff about music one day, and all of a sudden, here's the brother that I never had. Like, we were attached at the hip from the word go, and one day we were sitting around my mom's basement, and we were like, dude, let's put a punk rock band together. Like, at the time, this is like early 1995. We were very into the Rancid, the No Effects, you know, that kind of whole Epitaph kind of punk thing. Joey was coming out of a band called Filthiest that were straight up like old school Armed and Dangerous, Anthrax. So he was a metal kid. I was like a glam punk kid. But we all grew up on Kiss and Motley Crue, and we kind of loved Dio, to go back to that, and Manowar, but that'll come up later. And we're like, cool, let's put a band together and let's suck. Let's be the worst fucking band on planet Earth. At this point, I had been a drummer since age 3. When I was 3, my mom and dad bought me a drum kit. I took to it instantly. Like, I just started playing drums, and I was a drummer, and that's what I did. Joey was a drummer. I had absolutely no idea that Joey played guitar.
Okay.
Okay, so we're sitting around my house, and like, oh, 2 drummers want to put a band together. Holy shit, we're going to be 38 Special in 1986. We can't have that, you know? So he's like, well, I'll play guitar and you sing. And I'm all, you're out of your fucking mind, dude. I can't sing.
Wait, so you're telling me a band of 2 drummers, and you go, okay, great idea. Neither of us will be the drummer.
Right.
Okay, awesome.
And like, I'd always tell him, dude, you're the greatest drummer in the world. And let's face it, folks, if you're listening to this and you've heard Jordison play drums, the kid doesn't fuck around. He knows what he's doing.
Right.
And I kind of looked up to him as a local drummer, and I was like, God, you're a great drummer. And he's all, no, dude, you're a great drummer. And we go back and forth. And that's how this will, fuck it, we're not going to play drums. Oh, all right. So he's like, I'm going to play guitar and you're going to sing. And I'm all, dude, I can't sing. Now, at the time, keep in mind, 1985, Jesus, and 1995, I had like bleach blonde Billy Idol hair, right? Like, it was 1995. You were punk rock, whatever. And he's all, dude, you're 6'3", you're a fucking asshole, and you look the part. Find a key. Find any key. I don't give a shit what key it is. Find it. I'll write a song around it. So I'm like, no. And he's like, all right, cool, shitty note, write a song around it. And we wrote a song called Let's Fuck, which became the first Reject song, which, for those of you that have the Murderdolls Beyond the Valley of the Murderdolls record, there's a song on there called Let's Fuck. Same song, different set of lyrics once Wednesday came in.
Right.
We laughed because it was just, this was the most like, I'm going to rape you over an ice cream cone kind of lyrics. It was just, 20-year-old kids writing stupid shit. Then we got
so how'd the rest of the guys come into that?
This is where the story goes. So we're kind of like, well, we need other people. And we found a kid to play drums. We found a kid to play bass. It kind of worked. We fucked around. We sucked. Our first show was at this place in Des Moines called Central Campus. It was kind of the alternative high school, but they had an auditorium that was about the size of Madison Square Garden. This thing was huge. They had this battle of the bands. And they're like, any Des Moines band can come play. And we're like, hey, fuck it. We have 2 songs and an attitude problem. Let's go play this show. We signed up for it. There was some band, this little shitty Des Moines band called Stone Sour that was on the bill. Might have heard of them.
Nah, I'm sure nothing ever happened with those.
Nah, they've sold a record or 2 since then,
Right.
So here comes Corey Taylor, and he looked just like Dave Mustaine at the time. And at the time, I'm in my punk rock holier than thou thing, and he's wearing a Sid Vicious shirt. I'm wearing a Sid Vicious Just Died Times shirt. I look at him, I'm all, you metal faggot, you piece of shit poser, and I just laid into him.
You only like fucking the Sex Pistols because Megadeth covered Anarchy.
Right, exactly. And that's the same shit that I gave him, dude. I just laid into him about what a fucking poser he was. And he's a long-haired metal douche. And I really, really gave him a lot of grief. And we became instant friends.
Nice.
So there's this little band called Stone Sour. There's a band called The Rejects. And there was a band called Murderdolls that broke up. All of a sudden, Joey comes to practice one day, and he's like, hey, there's something going on with these other guys. I'm going to go do it as well. It's kind of a metal thing, kind of maybe Acid Bath meets Neurosis. And I'm all, whoa, dude, holy shit. Well, that little collaboration turned out to be Joey, Paul Gray, and Sean the Clown. Turns out to be Slipknot.
Okay.
So, they start doing their thing, and now it's Des Moines, 95, everything's alternative or punk, and here comes this band Slipknot that people are just like, what the fuck is this? This will never work. This won't sell any records.
Right.
And they kind of happened, and, they were doing their thing, we were doing our thing, Joey's doing double duty in both bands. All of a sudden, they start to get a crowd, we start to get a crowd, and all of a sudden there's a scene in Des Moines. From 95 to 96, not so much. End of 96 going into 97, this is kind of the new metal era. All these bands start to pop up. And they're good. Might not be my thing, but they're good. And all of a sudden we have a scene now. So you got Slipknot, the mass crazy motherfuckers. You've got us that think we're the Ramones, but we're playing kind of like people that can't play until we get good. And all these other bands popping up. One day in the middle of that, Joey and I decided we were going to get serious about our band, and we got good. We got real players. Things started to happen. We actually started to write decent music with really questionable, offensive lyrics. And then, Slipknot got their deal on like August 15th of 1998. We played our last show locally as the Rejects on August 22nd of 98 because those boys had to go out to LA and do the Slipknot record.
Right.
Slipknot record takes off. We take a year off as the Rejects. Basically fired everybody that was in the band outside of me and Joey. We're like, all right, cool. This has always been our band, so see you guys later. Dickhead move? Probably, but whatever. And then we took a break from 99 till 2000. In the interim, Slipknot's now the biggest band in the fucking world. What are we going to do with the Rejects? Well, we got to do something. So Joey had been out on the road. They went out. Slipknot did a Slipknot Coal Chamber Dope, and I want to say like Non-Point or some other band that's probably working at Arby's now. Tour, Joey comes back and he's like, hey, ready to do this record? I've got a couple people that can play for us. That's where we got Trip Eisen. We stole him from Dope. Like, okay, now
was Joey able to kind of say to Roadrunner, hey, we're we're the hugest band on your label. I want to do a solo project. Give me money. I'm going to go make this happen now. Or did you guys kind of have to pitch it and make it happen?
A little column A and a little column B.
Right.
It became obvious at some point during their record sales that everybody at the record company knew that there were these other bands. Like, not only that Corey had Stone Sour, that he'd actually left Stone Sour to go to Slipknot, but there was that, and, they knew that Joey had me and Joey's thing as the Rejects, and, they knew that Clown would want to do something. So at some point, somebody at Roadrunner basically said, well, look, I can sign everything.
What's the downside?
It's easier to keep everything under one umbrella,
Totally.
than let your cash cow go shop a deal somewhere else, right?
So you picked up Trip from Dope.
Yeah, we steal Trip from Dope, and you want to talk side story, I can spend 2 hours talking about how much Edsel, Dope, and I don't like each other.
I don't know how many people really know who he even is. So.
I don't think he knows who he is, but it was kind of like Dope was training school for my band. Like, if you were in Dope, you were going to end up in my band or a version of it down the road.
All right.
So we take Trip from Dope. We found this dude, Racy, that was playing in a band called the Genitorturers.
Excellent.
So we get Trip, we get Racy. Like, all right, cool. We got cool-looking rock and roll guys.
Okay, so you guys had a Rejects record, but it doesn't come out.
Right.
And why
we
was
did,
that?
actually. We did a record in 95. Actually, a cassette, if I can age myself, at a place called Junior's Motel up in Otho, Iowa. And that record was called Love Songs for People Who Hate. And I think maybe 20 people on planet Earth still have that cassette. I didn't have a copy of my own record until last summer when I got masters, because I had lost my tape and I had to call the studio to get masters. I'm like, oh, cool, right on.
So you mentioned Trip Eason was in the band. What? And you didn't mention Wednesday though. He was in the band, right?
Wednesday came in a little bit later. So we had Trip, we had Racy, we got this kid Ian that was in Vampire Love Dolls with AC. We got our band together to play live. Joey and I had already recorded what we were calling Strung Out, Pissed Off, and Ready to Die, which turned into Beyond the Valley of the Murderdolls once we brought Wednesday in and some of his songs. So fast forwarding, we go through 2000, 2001 with the Racy, Trip, me, Joey, and Ian lineup. For some reason, if it was a band decision or a Joey decision, Ian ended up not playing bass with us. We needed a bass player. I was a huge, huge fan of Frankenstein Drag Queens from Planet 13. I had turned Joe on to him. We loved the band, and I'm all, dude, the guy looks cool. He can play guitar, which means he can play bass by default. And even if he can't really play bass all that well, whatever, he's a bass player. You know, so that's kind of how we went into it. Like, oh, he's a dude that can hold a warlock around his neck. That'll work, you know?
Yep.
So we call Wednesday, and we're like, hey, dude, we're this band. You know, we tell him whatever bill of goods we sold him to say yes, you know? And he's all, yeah, I'll do it. And we're like, yeah, here's the deal. We need half of your songs.
Because we only have like 5 songs?
We had like 20 songs, but we loved his songs so much. We were
Got
like,
it.
yeah. If you're coming in, we're bringing your songs. So he got on a plane for the first time in his life, flew out to Iowa, came in. We bought him a Nicky 6 Blackbird to welcome him into the band. He didn't really want to be a bass player, but I kind of think he didn't want to live in North Carolina for the rest of his life. So
split the difference.
He did what he had to do.
Okay, so we got the Rejects who have a record deal, and now you have like Wednesday, Joey, you, and Trip in the band who have all done cool things or go on to do cool things. And what happens then?
So we bring his songs in, and now all of a sudden I'm singing Wednesday 13, Frankenstein Drag Queen from Planet 13 songs that I loved. I loved singing in my shower. I loved singing them in my car. I loved singing them, smoking pot in my basement. All of a sudden, I'm in a vocal booth singing this dude's songs, and something clicks in my head. Like, uh-oh. You know, like this.
Like, why not go to the source? He's one instrument over to the left on the stage.
To a point, yeah. And it just, in my mind, it was cool. Like, I love these songs. I love singing them. But it didn't feel right. Okay, whatever. So, you know, get out of the booth, get in the room, listen to stuff. Okay, it's cool, you know, blah, blah, blah. So, you know, it was what it was. And, you know, we're writing and we're doing things. And I can kind of start to see where things are switching a little. But so we keep him in the band. He's playing bass, whatever. We play a few shows in Des Moines, like big comeback shows that were sold out to the tits. And
nice.
They were great shows, and it was awesome. And then, you know, Wednesday goes back home. Joey had to go out and do some Slipknot crap or whatever. And I was sitting around, you know, trying to write around how Wednesday writes music, but I'm still trying to write around how Joey and I write. And just, I don't know, it didn't completely feel right.
Well, you guys weren't horror, and, you know, Murderdolls became kind of horror, and Frankenstein Drag Queens are kind of a little bit horror, right? So... But
now here's this horror element, and the only horror element we ever had as the Rejects was a song called I Fell in Love with a Zombie that was about fucking dead girls. Yeah, you know, because, you know, necrophilia,
classic.
crack open a cold one.
Right.
Why not? And that song turned into a song called She Was a Teenage Zombie on the Murderdolls record once I left. But that was our only horror aspect. And then I see all this horror coming into my kind of snotty, cocaine, fuck a girl behind the rainbow kind of rock. And it just, I could see it from a distance, but whatever. Now, full disclosure, this entire time this has been going on, my mom was suffering from multiple sclerosis. I was stuck at home taking care of her. And now we're at an apex of, what do I do? Do I tour? And who the hell is going to take care of my sick mom? You know what I mean? Like,
totally.
My dream is right here. It's in front of me. The paperwork's in front of me. The ink is drying, and my mom has a serious fucking medical condition that's getting in the way of my dream. Well, there's no such thing as getting in the way of your dream when it's your parent.
Right.
So I was going to have to go one way or the other, because we had tried to figure out, well, how do we deal with mom when you're in Japan, blah, 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 blah. So it made more sense for me just to kind of go do my thing. So I bailed the band. Wednesday took over on vocals. We had already made up our mind that we were going to change our name to the Murderdolls. We had made our mind up as far back as 98. Joey and I had a notebook, like college-lined, like 3 pages of band names. And the one that we always came back to was Murderdolls, because it was the Murder Junkies and the New York Dolls.
Yeah, that is a good mix.
2 of our favorite bands.
Right.
And but we were always on the fence. And we had even made an announcement on the Rejects webpage. Hey, we've decided to change our name, and we'll let you know in a couple weeks what it is once the ink is dry. Well, in that couple weeks, I left the band, blah, blah, blah. So
wow.
The cool thing about leaving is, maybe I bailed before, the record came out or before the tours or all that. But I got 2 more years with my mom before she died. And I don't care how rock and roll or un-rock and roll it is, I'll never trade those 2 years.
Sure.
Call me a pussy, whatever. But
no, I can totally understand that.
And I'm still friends with everybody. Like, everybody expects me to hate Wednesday. Oh, he took your job. They took your jobs.
They took your job.
And we're all friends. I talk to Joey. I talk to Wednesday. I talk to everybody. And
right.
Everything worked out the way it should.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's cool. But the one thing that we're missing out here is you kind of gave the history of all those bands' formations, but I think you're a little light on some of the, we don't talk that much, but I do know that, that you do have a treasure trove of wacky crap that went down when everybody had a little too much substances, including and not limited to alcohol. So maybe you want to bring up some of that.
Are you saying I might have done a lot of coke in the Rainbow bathroom and fucked some shit up? Because if that's what you're saying, just say it.
You might have done it. I know you mentioned. The first thing I want to hear about is the matchstick story, because I know that's a good story.
Oh God, the racy matchstick story. For anybody listening to this, if you go see Murderdolls dates, because Racy's playing with them again now, go up to him and ask him for the match trick. I don't know if he can do it, because I know a couple of years ago the doctor told him to kind of ixnay on the Atchmay trick. But essentially, the first time I ever saw the match trick, we had just got done playing at Harry Mary's in Des Moines. And we're, hanging out afterwards. We're trying to pick up chicks or whatever. And fucking Racy goes up to this hot chick at the bar, looks at me over his shoulder, winks, holds up a match, and I'm all, oh shit, I've only heard about this, right? So I run up and I'm like wingmanning him as he's talking to this girl. He's talking like, hey, what's up? Did you like the show? And as he's talking to her, he's slowly pulling his cock out of his pants and he's resting it on the bar stool. All right. All right, this is going to get good. He's talking, yeah, cool, yeah, as the drummer, you saw me be awesome. Like, doing his whole shtick. Sticking the matchstick up his dick as he's talking. Now, I don't know about you, but if I'm sticking anything up the head of my cock, I'm not going to be able to have a conversation with someone.
Not only that, but something that's definitely has a propensity to have splinters.
Right. That's going to hurt. So, effortlessly, he gets the match in his cock right up to the head of the match is on the head of his cock.
Oh.
He looks over at me.
Wait, are you talking inches? Or he slid it in like the entire length of the match?
There's like a pubic hair between the sulfur end of the match and his pee hole.
That's ridiculous.
Right? So he looks over at me and he's all, Dizzy, where's your lighter? Right here, Racy. So he lights it up, pulls the matchstick out just a little bit, so he's got a little bit of fuse. Lights it up, he still talks to this girl, and he's all, oh, hey, by the way, can you put this out? And she's all, what the hell are you talking about? And he's all, can you put this out? And he just shifts his eyes down, and he's looking. Now, keep in mind, he's wearing red fucking, like, patent leather lip service chaps. His cock's on a bar stool, and there's flame coming out of it. She looks over, looks down, and looks at him and goes, "Nope." And he's all, no, I'm not kidding. Like, would you blow that out? And she's all, I'm not going to blow you. And he's all, no, I'm not asking you to blow me. I'm asking you to blow the fucking fire out because it's about ready to hit my dick. And she's like, nope. Gets up and walks away. Here's Racy with his cock on fire. Has never been shot down on this trick. He doesn't know what the hell to do. And he's panicking. And all Joey and Trip and I can do is just walk away laughing.
Right.
Leaving him standing with his cock on a bar stool on fire.
So, well, something happened. Or maybe nothing happened. Maybe just
no. He put out the fire at the end of his own dick, and then tried to do it again with some other girl. But by that time, the rumor had traveled. So.
Right, exactly. So girls know enough to at least look down after the first hello.
It's funny. A few years after that, Racy and I were talking on the phone. He's all, "Yeah, dude, I can't do the match trick anymore." Well, what's up with that? He's all kinds of weird green shit was coming out of my dick, and I went to the doctor, and the doctor's like, "It's almost like you were putting things in your penis." Racy's like, "Well, yeah, yeah, it has been." Like how nonchalant, like, "Oh, do you have a coupon for 2 tacos for the price of 1? Oh yeah, I was putting wood with splinters up my cock. Whatever, you know."
Totally. Wow.
I almost want to say I have a cooler story than that, but I'm doing my own thing. I had created a band called the Drastiks with a kid named Jinx, who is now playing in a band called Black Veil Brides. This kid Jinx comes into my life. Turns out that he had been a fan when he was a kid of the Rejects. He was a Des Moines kid. So Jinx and I get back to Des Moines. It's Christmas 2004. I'm not going to say we're. I'll speak for myself. I'm all fucked up on coke. I'm a mess at the time. We're hanging out one night. We're having a party at my apartment. I'm like, let's call Joey and bring him over here. So we call Joey. He comes over. We're all drinking whiskey and whatever you do when you try and be a rock and roll star. And so we're all standing. There's a line. It's Jordison, myself, and Jinx. So it's short guy, really tall guy, and short guy. We're all standing in my kitchen. Jinx was just pulling shit out of my fridge and pouring it into a cup. And I'm okay, whatever you're doing, dude. Joey and I are slamming shots. I'm running off to do lines off my living room table. I come back in the kitchen. Jinx is all, drink this. All right, whatever. So I just slam it back. And it's like this weird concoction of like egg, fruit punch, Diet
Tabasco,
Coke, vodka. Yeah, it's just, there's probably Spam in it. It's just terrible. So I slam it back. It hits my throat. I instantly puke it back into the cup. Jinx grabs the cup and slams my puke down his throat. Pukes into the cup. I drink it, puke back into the cup. He drinks it. This goes on for a minute. Fucking Jordison looks at us and goes, I've seen a lot of shit, but I'm fucking out of here, you guys. And he books it from my front door.
Right. Well,
like a fucking pussy.
It sounds
3 seconds later.
It sounds gross when you first hear it, but I mean, it's kind of classy.
Yeah,
I can't.
I was just glad there was Dijon mustard in there because I put Dijon on everything. Anyway, so fucking Jordison bails. He's like, you motherfuckers are out of control. I'm done. See you guys later. He bolts out my front door. Couple seconds later, knock, knock, knock on my front door, and it's fucking tiny little Jordison. And he's all, I didn't bring my car. I need a ride home. We're like Vince Neil asking Razzle to get in the car kind of drunk, you know? Right. Yeah, somehow we got him home. We got back there. The next day we wake up and Jinx looks at me. He's all, did we puke last night? I'm like, yeah, pretty sure
I have to
did.
imagine the two of you woke up and looked at each other the way that, like, like some uncomfortable one-night stand kind of thing. Like, do we have, like, each other's, like, bile, like, lodged deep into our
that's
stomach?
exactly how it was.
Oh, God, that's disgusting. So Joey is, like, the ultimate drummer, or at least one of them. And he's an okay rhythm guitar player, but it's like, is he just kind of want to get away from the kit from now and then? I mean, what's going on there?
I think Joey to me is kind of like Prince. He's one of those guys that can pick up an instrument and play it. And if he has an instrument in his hand, that means that music has to happen. And be it if it's him writing the music for Slipknot, or if him doing something with the Dolls, or doing the Pussifer remixes, or playing with Ministry or Korn, or the kid's just a fucking musical genius. And he's just one of those guys. I'm one of those guys that I can play drums, and I'm lucky that I can sing in key. Right. If you handed me a cello right now, I'd probably hit you in the face with it.
Right. Oh, he's one of those guys. Yeah, but certain people are like, oh, I've got an extra half an hour. Let me figure out how to freaking master this thing.
Right. And Joey's just that dude. And Jinx, to an effect, is that guy. Jinx is like a classically trained cellist and violin player, like... I've been the guy, like, I have very limited talent, but I always end up getting a really talented guitar player with me.
Yeah, so, me too.
I suck a mean dick, too, though, so I don't know.
Well,
Wait, I
that's
said
a skill
that.
unto itself. So, all right, so we talked...
Yeah, this thing won't suck itself.
We talked about Joey and Wednesday, and but we kind of glossed over the whole Trip thing, and since you were so close with him, and, I don't know how many people know him, but he had a pretty good career going with Dope and Murderdolls and Static X, and it kind of tailed off all of a sudden. And some people know why, some people might not. But I was wondering if you might want to give your thoughts on that.
Really bad decisions.
Yeah, I would go with that.
Pussy's awesome, but make sure that you get an ID.
Right.
It's not Almost Famous, and it's not 1973, and you can't be Ted Nugent and adopt a 17-year-old just to get your rocks off.
Totally. I thought that was Steve Tyler. Or was it Jimmy Page? You're right. The 70s were like, maybe he just looks back and goes, damn, I was just born in the wrong decade. It was totally cool back then.
God damn it, I'm 10 years too old.
He did have some cool Manowar swag.
Would it be wrong for Halloween, dude, if I went out with a Trip Eisen mask and a Herbert the Pervert robe?
It wouldn't be wrong. It would just be so obscure that you just have to spend half your time explaining it.
Right, like you would get it and my roommates would get it and 3 or 4 other people. Otherwise, I'd be like some dude with dreadlocks and a blue robe, like, whoa, that guy's creepy and he wants to fuck kids.
Like, it kind of brings up like me and Dizzy have had this band together, and it's kind of an odd band to have had because we've never had a rehearsal or a show or even written a song or done anything but like kind of take band photos. But we have it's kind of a dig on Pretty Boy Floyd, and I'm sort of the lead.
Pretty Boy Floyd 3 is the greatest rock and roll band ever, and shame on you for trying to talk.
You're right. I kind of feel like I haven't brought it up. I mean, I haven't pimped it as hard as it could, but basically we're a Pretty Boy Floyd tribute band because the original's not good enough. But
good.
So I deck out in my Pretty Boy. There's a lot of photos of me dressed up like Steve Sex Summers from Pretty Boy Floyd. And it's a great story on what the whole concept is, except you have to go, okay, no, I'm not me. I'm Steve Sex Summers from Pretty Boy Floyd. And they go, Steve Sex who? And I'm like, okay, let me begin from the beginning. There was this band called Pretty Boy Floyd. And they're like, and people are like, you mean Pink Floyd? No. Let me go.
No.
Let me go back further than that. I don't know if this is probably not going to translate at all, but it's exactly what you're talking about. If you have too obscure a Halloween costume, it's a lot of needless explanation. Okay, so if we learn nothing else from this interview, we've learned that there was just like an Iowa explosion of Murderdolls, Stone Sour, Slipknot, Rejects, and very incestuous.
And I'm still here to tell the
story.
Still
here to tell the tale. So what was it? So okay, let's think about this though. None of those bands, except for maybe Stone Sour, you would kind of look at as, oh, they're kind of mild-mannered chaps. I mean, they're all kind of outgrowth of Kiss or any kind of punk rock, misfits, shock rock thing. Is everybody in those bands kind of live that lifestyle? I know you do. You told your crazy barf swapping stories, but there are a whole bunch of people in Slipknot and Murderdolls that are pretty mild-mannered.
You know,
you don't have to name names.
I think everybody has their moment. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna throw anybody under a bus, but
you don't have to. But maybe
everybody I know from that circle and my time in it and my time still in it was we all knew how to party, but at the end of the day, we knew how to get business done too. Like, there wouldn't be a Slipknot if there wasn't for the genius of Clown. I mean, Sean Cran's one of the most brilliant people I've ever met in my life.
Okay, because I've heard that people kind of like, you know, he formed the band, but then he got all the really musical people around him. You know, now you're saying he's like, you know, the driving force?
No, I'm not saying that at all. I think your statement is, I think he absolutely the creative vision in that band, 100%. But, you know, it's Joey and Paul and some of the other guys that wrote all the music. And, you know, would that music have been as awesome without a vision by a visionary such as Sean the Clown? I don't know if that would have happened. I think Sean had, you know, Sean's kind of a Van Gogh in a way. He's kind of the artist that paints an extremely broad yet specific strokes about what his vision is. And I love him to death. I love Sean to pieces, but god damn, I don't want to be in his brain. Like, whatever's going on in his brain, and I was a 4-point student. I'm a fairly smart guy. Whatever's going on in his brain is some shit that I can't comprehend, dude. You know, sometimes it's easier just to wake up and be Lemmy. You know? You want a good Lemmy story? I got a good Lemmy story for you. This is my I met Lemmy story. So we're fucking partying at the Rainbow. We're all hammered.
Wow,
we're doing whatever you do.
I never guessed that your Lemmy story was going to start with we're all partying at the Rainbow.
Right. Sometimes you're in the bathroom in the kitchen of the Rainbow and you come out of there and you think you just walked out of Bolivia. Right. So I'm walking out, you know, walking between the Roxy and the Bow, and I go to take a right. I hang a right on the sidewalk on there on Sunset, and I fucking bump into somebody, knock them down. I'm like, oh, shit, I'm a nice guy. I was raised in the Midwest by nice Irish Catholic parents. I was going to be a nice guy. I put my hand down. I'm like, hey, sorry I knocked you over. It's fucking Lemmy. I'm like, uh-oh. You know? So I help him up, and he proceeds to tell me to fuck off in like 17 specific ways. All right, cool. Met Lemmy. Right on. So a couple days later, I'm at the Bow, and he's sitting in the Lemmy captain chair. And I was like, hey, sorry I knocked you over the other night. And he basically told me to shut the fuck up, sit down, and have a drink. I was like, all right, cool. You know? Like, where's Dio when you need it?
You're like, you should have said that. You're like, you know, when I had a fanzine at 13, Dio was a lot more giving with his time.
But you fucking asshole.
Shit. Well,
so
that brings it full circle. So I guess we're gonna put the wraps on this one, but we're gonna play a little Dizzy's music for you. What song are we gonna play, Dizzy?
The Drastics version of Everything About You. That was a reject song that never turned into a Murderdolls song. So we can probably get away with that. I did it on a Drastic song. All props to Jordison for the music, but all the lyrics are me, as always.
All right, so we're going to listen to a song by Dizzy. This is the Drastics, and it's called, what is it called again, Dizzy?
Everything About You Sucks Except for Your Drugs.
Nice. I wish I'd thought of that title. Yeah, I may just cover it later on.
Thanks for having me, and I'm sorry I bored the shit out of everyone.
Are you kidding, dude? You kicked ass. All right, that takes care of this episode. So if you want to email the show with any questions, comments, insults, or accolades, that's dsdgods@gmail.com. Otherwise, we'll see you soon. Here's Dizzy with the Drastics to play us out. Yeah!
No, baby, cause they're always kissing ass. It ain't the way you fuck, I'm better off with myself. It ain't the way you act, cause you could use a little help. What the fuck I do to have to put up with you? Do all your pills and turn superstar blue. Drink all your booze, I'm gonna shoot all your dough. If that don't work, I gotta deal with the road. I don't really like you. but I sure like to smack. The only time I